Today, we're diving into something incredibly ambitious. We're looking at a company called Linkspreed, and their plan? Well, it isn't just to build a new app. They're talking about rebuilding the entire internet from the ground up. But before we get into their plan, let's just step back and ask a really big question. We spend so much of our lives online, right? But what if the very foundation of that world is, well, broken? It sounds dramatic, but when you start looking at the cracks, a pretty clear picture starts to form. And you know exactly what I'm talking about. It's the stuff we deal with every single day. The endless data breaches, a handful of giant companies controlling basically everything, the fact that we have almost zero control over our own data, not to mention crazy expensive phones that are designed to die, and online communities that are totally trapped inside these walled gardens. You see, these aren't just little bugs. They're huge structural cracks in the system. So what if you could actually fix it? I don't mean just patching up the cracks. I mean tearing it all down and rebuilding the whole foundation. That is exactly the wild plan we're looking at today. Okay, so let's get into part one, building the Web4 foundation. Because think about it, before you can have any cool new apps or services, you've got to have the absolute basics in place. You need to know who you are, where everything lives, and what you're using to connect to it all. So the very first pillar is something called UIID, or Universal Identity. The easiest way to think about it is like a digital passport for this new web. But here's the key difference. Instead of Google or Facebook owning your login, you do. It uses some really clever crypto, stuff like zero-knowledge proofs, that lets you prove who you are without actually handing over your private data. You're in complete control. And listen, this isn't just about privacy for the sake of it. We're talking about serious money. The old system is ridiculously expensive. According to IBM, the average cost for just one data breach is now a staggering $4.5 million. That's a massive, massive incentive for businesses to find a better way. And you can see the momentum right here. The whole industry built around giving you control of your identity. It's called self-sovereign identity. It's exploding. We're talking about projected growth of almost 50% a year. So this is not some niche little idea. It's a market that's taking off like a rocket. Okay, so you've got your secure digital passport. Fantastic. But that identity and all of your data, it needs a home. It needs a real infrastructure to live on. And that's where pillar number 2 comes in, Arctic. This is a totally decentralized network that basically moves computing power away from those giant big tech data centers and brings it to the edge, closer to us and our devices. It's like having your own personal, super secure cloud server, but without having to rely on Amazon or Google. And the opportunity here, it is just immense. The entire market for this edge computing stuff is worth over $400 billion. And even the specific slice that Linkspreed is going after is still a massive $75 billion pie. This isn't just a new feature. It's about rebuilding the entire physical backbone of the internet. So we have our identity, we have the infrastructure, but how do you actually access any of it? Well, that leads us right to the third pillar of the foundation, WYNIX. This is a whole new line of hardware. We're talking phones and notebooks built with a completely different mindset. Just look at this comparison. On one side, you have the old way we all know. Super expensive devices that are literally designed to be replaced every couple of years and are constantly sucking up your data. Then you've got the WYNIX way, affordable devices starting around $200 that are built to actually last. And this is key, with privacy built in from the start, not as some afterthought you have to dig for in the settings. And the crazy thing is, the demand for this is already there. It's huge. A whopping 78% of people say they are actively worried about their digital privacy. They are looking for an alternative, and that's the exact frustration this hardware is built to solve. All right, so with part 2, let's get to the really exciting stuff. Once you have this new foundation in place, identity, infrastructure, and hardware are all sorted, you can finally start building a completely new kind of application on top of it. So pillar number 4 is called SNaaS, which stands for Social Networks as a Service. Now, this is not just another Facebook clone. No way. This is a platform that lets creators actually build, own, and monetize their own independent social networks. So instead of being held hostage by some mysterious algorithm, creators get to own the platform, the rules, and their community's data. And the audience for this is, well,
It's basically everyone. You've got over 200 million creators out there trying to reach 5 billion social media users, all playing in a creator economy that's already worth $250 billion. SNaaS is designed to give those creators the control they've been begging for. The fifth and final pillar moves into the business world. It's called TRIVE, and it's a full suite of those essential business tools, things like CRMs and ERPs. But here is the really radical part. It's free, and it offers unlimited users. This just completely shatters that expensive per-user, per-month model that every small business hates. And here's exactly why that matters. A staggering 90% of small businesses are incredibly sensitive to those high per-user software fees. So by just wiping that cost off the table, TRIVE is trying to become the go-to operating system for literally millions of small and medium-sized businesses all over the world. Now for part 3. And honestly, this is where the whole strategy really clicks. We've seen these 5 really powerful pillars, right? But the key is that they aren't designed to be separate things. They're built to create a powerful multiplier effect, a self-reinforcing ecosystem, where the whole thing becomes way, way bigger than just the sum of its parts. This quote just nails the core idea. The person who buys one of these privacy-first phones, they're not just a customer. They can actually choose to become part of the new internet's backbone by running a node. So selling hardware literally builds out the network. It's a brilliant loop. Let's just walk through this flywheel step by step. First, it all starts when someone buys a WYNIX device. Second, they need a UIID to secure it. Third, that same device can then help power the Arctic network. Fourth, now they can use that whole setup to join a SNaaS community or maybe run their business on TRIVE. And then fifth, the final piece. The more people who use these apps, the more demand it creates for the entire system. You see, each piece just feeds all the others. Which brings us to our wrap-up in part 4, the trillion-dollar question. When you put all of these pieces together, what does this grand strategy actually add up to? This table really just lays it all out perfectly. Every single pillar is a direct answer to a huge problem with the internet today, and each one is tackling a market that's worth hundreds of billions, or in the case of hardware, over $1 trillion. From your identity to the infrastructure, the hardware in your hand to social apps and business tools, it's a completely integrated system. So we end right like where we started, but now with a much, much clearer picture of the plan. The ambition here is it's breathtaking. It's a strategy to fix the internet's biggest problems by creating a brand new all-in-one alternative for pretty much everything. And that leaves us with one final, really big question to chew on. Could something like this actually work?